Okay, if you haven't seen yet, you should be getting access to VO3 very, very soon. And you'll be able to see it in the Gemini app. You can see it on the Gemini app on the phone and the Gemini app on the web as well. It's absolutely brilliant for creating video content. And what's even better now is you can create 8-second video clips based upon an image that you upload as well. You can take a static image and it will create an 8-second video clip about it. But it's using, the key thing here is it's using the VO3, which is Google's latest video generation model. This is also available through Google Vids as well. So there's two ways to generate video content. One is inside of a Gemini app, and then the other is inside of Google Vids. Simon, if you got something to demo, maybe at the end of the call we can get you on to demo if it's call appropriate. I just saw that comment. Okay, carrying with Google Vids, and this is actually using Gemini. So Google Vids is actually being made available to everybody. Previously, it was only for schools with Education Plus. Now it's available to everybody. There's an additional feature using AI to level audio. So last month I had an announcement about using special effects and adjusting the audio, but now you can level the audio across the entirety of the video that you're generating. So just making it easier to manage the audio in those Google Vids. Quick Gmail Gemini update. You may have seen this already. If you're on mobile, you'll see this already. So in the Android and iOS apps, you get a little card at the top in Gmail summarizing the email. That's now rolling out to the web as well. So in Gmail, if you have access to Gemini in Gmail, which is currently called Gemini Education, which is changing to Google AI Pro very soon. Just a quick reminder there. But currently it's in Gemini Education. If you have Gemini, you will see those little summary cards inside of Gmail. Google Meet's had a couple of updates, and some of these are related to Gemini and some are not. Part of it's around the communication over take notes for me, and then the other part is another related announcement around recordings and transcripts. So it's actually possible for your administrator to turn on the automatically turn on Google Meet recordings and transcripts for all users. If that's turned on, then everybody gets it. They get automatically applied to their calendar events. But then after the call ends, just the format of the notification is much better now. It's much clearer where all of those resources are being stored and links out to them as well. Gemini in Drive. So if you have access to Gemini inside of Google Drive, you're now able to, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, you can actually perform certain tasks like creating files, but you can also move files and move folders as well. You can actually say, I want to create a file inside of this folder. So some of that sort of very basic sort of agentic AI is coming to Google Drive. It'll be interesting to see where this goes, because I think this is going to be very powerful. I think it'd be great to be able to see, let's create, based upon these meeting notes, I want a Google spreadsheet tracker, I want a new folder, I want maybe a Google form or something else, but like doing multiple actions. But just for now, you can create and you can move files and folders from the side panel. Again, that's a Gemini feature. Custom gems are now fully rolled out and available in the side panel of Google Workspace. Wherever you are inside of Google, whether you're in Google Docs or Gmail, you'll now have access to your gems, your custom gems. When you open up the side panel, you'll see the initial prompts, but you'll also see access to your custom gems as well. That's really good because obviously the power of gems are now available across the whole of Workspace. Again, if you have that Gemini license. You can also schedule actions. Now, this is inside the Gemini app. So if you have access to a Gemini app, you'll be able to do this as well. So scheduled actions. For example, you can get an update on the latest ed tech news for the week, and you could schedule that for a Monday. So you put that into Gemini, you'd say, okay, I want to schedule the action. I want to get all the latest ed tech news from the last week, and I want you to deliver that to me on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. And you can set that up. There's other things you can do in there as well, but that's just one example. So scheduling that. And it's important to mention that even though Gemini app is now available to students, scheduling actions is only for 18 plus for now. And again, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Gemini in Classroom is now available to all Google Education users. So there's a screen of different tools that you can use, different ways you can use Gemini inside of Google Classroom. That's available for all education users. Quick Google Chat update. So now you can see when you mention a file, you can see an overview of that file. So if in a Google Space or a Google Chat, you can see a file there, you tap on it, you can see an overview of it. This just expands different file formats which are being supported. So in addition to Google Drive files, docs, sheets, slides, and so on, you can now see PDF overviews and Word, Excel, Office file overviews as well. I think this began to roll out a few months ago. I know I've had access to this for a while, but it's finally on general release. And that's the ability to use the AI function inside of Google Sheets. So again, you do need a Gemini license for this. If you do have a Gemini license, inside of Google Sheets, you'll be able to use I know the animation is quite small, but you'll be able to use the equals AI function to generate content based upon the sheet. So this could be, for example, analyzing the sentiment of feedback of a training event. It could be creating maybe student feedback based upon their test or their work performance. And you have all of that data inside of Google Sheets. There's a variety of different ways you can use this. You can use it to create marketing copy as well for tweets or LinkedIn posts. So if you have a Google Sheet, you have your different columns of data, you type in equals AI, type in a prompt, and then you say, which columns of data do I want it to look at, and then it will automatically generate content for you. It's really cool. It's very cool to play around with. I just thought, yeah, Dan's comment, great comment there. So a dynamic feedback letter based upon student scores. Yeah, brilliant, Dan. Thanks for sharing that. Video file uploads in the Gemini mobile app. So now you can upload video files to analyze them and to prompt about those video files. So you can say, summarize a video, you can ask it maybe even sentiment or describe it, or ask different questions about it. You can upload video files to Gemini. And again, I think we mentioned this before, but the Gemini app is now available to all education users at all age levels. So there used to be a restriction. The Gemini app used to be restricted to 13 plus. Now it's for students of all ages. I think the bigger announcement here, I think the bigger thing to mention here is that it will be turned on by default on the 1st of August. And the administrator should have received an email about this. Now you can opt out of turning it on by default, or if you have disabled Gemini for your student OUs, then that will remain disabled. But if you have not made any settings in the admin console about this, it will be turned on by default on the 1st of August. Email communication has gone out about this already. Just an FYI, that is being turned on by default. Peter, is there anything else to mention about that? If I missed anything about that, because I think it's quite an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, if you've already turned it off, it's going to stay off, but you do have an opt-out. So if you don't want it turned on automatically, then yeah, do that opt-out. And I believe for schools in the EU, that's not the case though. It will remain off anyway, is my understanding. I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that messaging from Google wasn't too clear on that, so we'll get some clarification.
Thanks, Claire. Claire just mentioned that she got the email today. Yeah, I think this is important because it's summertime. Not everybody's maybe paying attention to all the emails, and it will be turned on by default on the 1st of August. Not ideal timing from Google on that one, but quick heads up. Okay, so I think this is really useful. It's going to save me a lot of time, is you can link out to your Google Calendar booking pages when you're writing emails inside of Gmail. From within the email, I don't have a screenshot for this, but it will pop on the sort of menu bar for Gmail, you'll be able to insert your booking page. What I've done, I've created a short link to that, and it's contained inside of our email signature. But now you'll be able to, when you're writing an email, choose a specific booking calendar to include inside of your email. So rather than going to calendar, digging out the link to it, and then copying and pasting it into your email, you could be able to do that directly inside of Gmail. So just unearthing those booking pages a little bit more, a little bit better. This probably applies to nobody. Migrating data from SharePoint to Google Drive, just in case anybody wants to migrate the data from SharePoint to Drive. It's now, you'll be able to do that as a tool to be able to enable that. Okay, an Android release, I think. Just curious, if you put your hands up, how many people are using Android devices here? You can put your hands up. Thank you. I'm using an Android device, Dan, so it's you and I. I was curious about that. Oh, there's a few people. Mark, yeah. Definitely in the minority, I think. Yeah, Dan, I just got I got the Google 9, the Pixel 9. Very happy with it. We don't need to read out all the Android updates. Okay, moving on. Google Drive has had just received a few updates over the last few months, in which you can search for files using chips and so on, but it's just a refreshed interface now for Google Drive for desktop. Now, something to mention about this, we actually don't recommend schools enabling Google Drive for desktop because it's a classic way to have malware infiltrate Drive. But if you are using it, it has received an update. Peter, given the Google audits, is there anything you would want to mention about Google Drive for desktop?
Yeah, like James suggests, turning it off completely is always our recommendation, but there are some other controls you can use to fine-tune how it works. So for instance, you could only restrict it to your school-owned devices and prevent it from being used on untrusted personal devices, which might not be very secure. You can also turn off some of the syncing options to put it in file stream mode only. So that's another thing to look at that way. It's not backing up user drives and it's not syncing the entire user drive on Google Drive down to their local computer as well. So that makes it a little bit more secure, but my preference is to turn it off and make people use a web interface.
Thanks, Peter, for that insight. If anybody's using Lucidchart, Lucispark apps inside of Google Chat, just a better way to, you can mention a chart and it'll be visible directly inside of Google Chat. If you're using either of those, then they will, when you mention it, it will show a quick preview as per the image, and you can tap on it and you can see the chart just pop up. Nice little integration there. I think we could pass that one. IRM. Peter, is that relevant? IRM update? I think we'll pass that one on. Google Sites set an update, so making the functionality, the search functionality in Sites much more powerful. But previously, I didn't even realize until this update came out, you could not search embedded content inside of Google Sites. When you go to Google Site, you type in a search, it would not look for embedded content. But now it will. So when you search inside of Google Sites, it will look across any of those docs, sheets, slides, content, which have been embedded as well. Gmail, and this is Gmail for everybody. So Gmail consumer, so your regular Gmail address plus the Gmail on the education accounts. Just getting a better update on how to manage subscriptions. There'll be a single place where you can manage, organize your subscriptions, and unsubscribe as well. I think one of the greatest updates from Google in the last couple of years is the unsubscribe button inside of Gmail. Absolutely love that. There's now just a better way to manage all of your email subscriptions as well, or your newsletters and so on. I'll skip that developer update. Quick app sheet update. There's been a couple of these over the last year. Just in app sheet, the ability to manage licenses. This doesn't apply to education too much because generally schools are using the regular app sheet license. So when you purchase Education Plus, that gives you access to app sheet core. And I think 99% of the time, that's what schools are using. It's just AppSheet cores. This wouldn't really apply to them. But if you do have the AppSheet enterprise license on top, there are some security controls that come with that. It's just a better place to manage those licenses. Okay, something that we don't do, but I'm wondering if we start to utilize this in the future is live streaming. So if you have a Google Meet and you live stream an event or something like that, live stream viewers will now be able to send chat messages from the live stream. So previously it was just visible, they couldn't send any messages, but now they'll be able to send chat messages as a part of that live stream. Okay, back to Gemini. I know we mentioned this a couple of times around about the history of Gemini chats, but also the ability to audit Gemini prompts. You'll be able to, now you can obviously do this inside of, Google Vault already, but you'll also be able to use the reporting API, but also in the security audit investigation tools as well inside of the admin consoles. You'll be able to drill down and search for any perhaps inappropriate prompting that's happening. And just seeing as though we mentioned audit, I just want to do a very shameless boost for our Google Workspace security audit. I just wanted to mention that we're in the process, Peter's in the process of updating our security audit. So our security audit is something where we dive into every area of Google Workspace and we look at all the settings, security, sharing, basically everything across Google Workspace. We're in the process of benchmarking these to CIS. So actually, Peter, maybe just back to you for a second. Could you maybe just share a couple of words of what that would look like? What does that mean?
Yes, as James says, this is probably the biggest update to the security audit since we first launched it several years ago. So we're aligning it more closely with the CIS benchmark recommendations for Google Workspace, but also still aligned with what Google recommends as well. And we always adopt an even more secure stance based on what either benchmark recommends there. So it's going into even more depth now, capturing even more information in that report. So even if you've already had one done, if it's a couple of years ago, it might be worthwhile having booking this in again. And I think this has been one of our most popular services. So excited to update this further and making it even more useful for schools. So keep a lookout for that. We'll share more details in September once it's all ready to go.
Yeah, let's share an overview of what the new audit report looks like. Yes. If anybody's got any interest, reach out to myself or Peter or Katerina or Dan or anybody else on the team. Okay, quick update to Google Groups, just around changing the settings within Google Groups. You can lock Google Groups to prevent any sensitive, any changes to, for example, sharing settings or allowing people in as well, just in case you're concerned that somebody may do that. That has the ability to change those settings, so you can lock Google Groups to prevent that. I think I mentioned this already. Google Vids is now available for all Google Workspace education customers. I think we already mentioned that. Okay, so now you can, so back to, we talked about Microsoft files a few minutes ago. You can now open embedded PDFs from Microsoft files in Google Drive. I think that's correct. I think I got that the right way around. So if you have a Microsoft Office file, so a Word file that had an embedded PDF, previously you would not be able to view that, but now you can. I don't think that many people are working on Microsoft files inside of Google Drive, but that is available now. Okay, skip that Gmail update. Google Drive log events now include search information. So again, back to this, the auditing of your data. Google Drive log events, so previously you didn't have this, but if maybe there's been an attempt, maybe an account has been compromised and that account is being used to search for sensitive data, those search strings or search activity is now going to be logged in as a Google Drive log event. So you can have that in the security investigation tool, which means a couple of things. You could actually create a notification if perhaps specific searches for sensitive data popped up, if the frequency increased, for example, or you can just see all of the search log data and maybe create a report around that. I suspect creating a report around that and maybe putting it through Gemini to see if there are any changes would be a good combination there. But anyway, search activity is now being reported from Google Drive. GitHub app, if anybody's using the GitHub app inside of Google Chat, so a couple of updates, the ability to draw data across and to interact with your GitHub account. Okay, so Google Groups is, in addition to the one we just mentioned about any sensitive changes, it's also going to be, you have a more granular ability to control who can manage members and who can view members inside of Google Groups. So the ability to do that, the ability to have those permissions is going to be changing. That'll be rolling out in September. I think it's just something to be aware of when you're auditing your Google Groups. This not being opened up, but now you'll be able to configure, like in addition to those existing permissions, you'll be able to configure who can view and who can manage members. I think we've seen this a few times already with Google Forms, that Google Forms is changing how people respond to Google Forms. It's getting much more granular, so you can restrict, rather than just outside of your domain or inside of your domain, you can restrict who can respond to a Google form to either a group, target audience, or even individual users as well. They're very much similar to how Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Sites manage their sharing. If you've recently created a Google form and tried to share it the old way, you'll find that people don't get access to it. It's kind of a two-step process now. You have to publish the form and enable sharing. Okay, I think we can skip that one. Just go through a couple of these quickly. Yes. Yeah, I think there at the end. We'll leave it right there. A couple of very small updates we can skip.